right, Bears fans, let's get real for a second. The Chicago Bears have been one of the most frustrating teams to watch this season. It's not that they're completely lost or outmatched. No, the problem is that they keep shooting themselves in the foot over and over again. There are moments when you can see the potential, when the plays click, when the rhythm looks good. But then, bam, a flag flies, a drive stalls, or a mental mistake wipes out a huge gain. It's like every time this team takes one step forward, they find a way to take two steps back. And it's getting to the point where it's not just bad luck or bad calls. It's about discipline, execution, and leadership. Now, head coach Ben Johnson has been preaching the same thing since the day he walked into Hallis Hall: fix the little things. He's been clear about it. This team doesn't need miracles. It needs details. The Bears don't lose games because they're getting out-talented. They lose because they can't stop hurting themselves with penalties, sloppy fundamentals, and missed opportunities. It's all those small cracks that turn into big problems on Sundays. And if this team ever wants to take the next step, those cracks have to get sealed up right now. Let's start with the most obvious one: penalties. You don't have to be a football genius to see it. The Bears have been one of the most penalized teams in the entire league. Week after week, it's the same thing. False starts, illegal formations, holding calls, unnecessary roughness. These aren't the kind of penalties that come from aggression or trying to make a play. These are mental errors, things that are supposed to be cleaned up in practice. What's wild is that the Bears' opponents are among the least penalized teams in the NFL. So not only are they constantly hurting themselves, but they're also giving their opponents extra help by keeping the field clean. Now, sure, some of those calls have been questionable. Every team feels like the refs are out to get them sometimes. But let's be honest here. When you're racking up 10 penalties a game for almost 90 yards, that's not about the refs. That's about discipline. It's about accountability. And that's exactly what Ben Johnson talked about this week. He said it perfectly. Coaches can help guide and support, but at some point, the players in that locker room have to take ownership. They got to grab this thing by the horns and say enough. It's encouraging to finally hear that type of message. Accountability in football is a two-way street. The coaches can preach all they want, but if the players don't buy in, nothing changes. The veterans in that room need to step up. The offensive line has been one of the biggest offenders, and guys like Joe Thuney, who's been around the block, need to be more vocal. False starts, pre-snap confusion, those things destroy drives before they even begin. And while some of it can be tied to the quarterback's cadence, that's not the whole story. Every player has a responsibility to stay locked in and focused. What's even more frustrating is how the pattern keeps repeating. You can look back at the numbers: 12 penalties for over 100 yards in the opener, then a bit of improvement, then back up to 9, 10, 11 flags a game. It's become a trend, not an exception. And these aren't just random 5-yard mistakes. These penalties are flipping field position, wiping out big plays, killing momentum. There was even a game where they got flagged for lining up wrong on a punt that was perfectly executed and pinned the opponent at the 1-yard line. Instead of celebrating a special teams gem, the penalty forced a re-kick that sailed out of bounds, gifting the opponent 20 extra yards. That's the kind of stuff that separates winning teams from losing ones. And look, there are always going to be calls you can live with. A defensive pass interference when you're fighting for the ball, a roughing the passer flag that comes from playing hard, fine. That's part of football. But not lining up correctly? Jumping early on 3rd and short? Those are preventable. Those are the types of mistakes that say more about focus and preparation than talent or effort. And when you're a team that's still trying to build consistency, those details matter more than ever. What Johnson wants, and what every fan wants, is for the Bears to play clean, fundamental football. Cut those penalties even by 20%, and you're suddenly in much better shape. Drives don't stall as often. Red zone trips turn into touchdowns instead of field goals. The defense stays fresh instead of constantly being thrown back on the field. Football is a game of inches, but it's also a game of discipline. And right now, Chicago is losing the discipline battle every single week. Now, the other big area that's been haunting this team is their performance in the red zone. Earlier in the season, the Bears were actually one of the most efficient teams once they crossed the 20-yard line. They were finishing drives, capitalizing on opportunities, and walking away with touchdowns instead of settling for 3 points. But ever since week 3, that efficiency has completely fallen apart. They've gone from being near the top of the league to sitting near the bottom. Since then, it's been one missed opportunity after another, settling for field goals, taking sacks, or committing those same costly penalties once the field shrinks. The numbers tell the story. In their first 3 games, the Bears scored touchdowns on 6 of 7 red zone trips. That's elite. Since then, they've gone 11 for 23 overall, and just 5 for their last 16. That's barely above 30%. In other words, over 2/3 of the time they're coming away with nothing more than a field goal, or worse, a turnover. You can't win in the NFL playing like that. It's not even about having a perfect offense. It's about capitalizing on chances when you get them. You march down the field, eat up clock, move the chains, and then what? You get inside the 10 and freeze up. If you watched that Baltimore game, you saw exactly what I'm talking about. The Bears dominated early. They drove down the field, looked poised to score, and then they stalled out inside the 5. Had to settle for a field goal. Then it happened again. By the time the Ravens finally found their rhythm, the Bears' early advantage was gone. That's how fast momentum flips in this league. You turn one of those field goals into a touchdown, and suddenly you're up 10-0 instead of 6-0. The other team starts pressing. The pressure builds. Instead, it was the Bears who blinked first. That's the frustrating part, because you can see the foundation of something good. The offense is moving the ball between the 20s. The quarterback isn't lost. The receivers are getting open. The line is giving time. But when it's time to finish, they fall apart. And that's where discipline and execution collide again. A false start turns a 3rd and 3 into 3rd and 8. A holding call wipes out a touchdown. A missed assignment leads to a sack. All of those are avoidable mistakes. And when you're converting touchdowns at a 31% rate, you're not just leaving points on the board. You're leaving wins behind, too. This team doesn't need to be perfect in the red zone. Nobody's asking them to score every single trip. But they can't keep living in the bottom tier either. Getting back to even league average efficiency, say around 55 or 60%, would completely change the narrative around this team. It would quiet a lot of the noise around the quarterback. It would boost confidence in the locker room. It would change how opponents prepare for them. Because right now, defenses know that if they can just bend a little, the Bears will break themselves. And until that changes, this offense is always going to feel like it's a few steps short of what it could be. The reality is, the Bears have enough talent to win games. They just have to stop sabotaging themselves. The penalties, the lack of red zone composure, and the special teams miscues we'll get into later, they all come from the same root problem: focus and consistency. You can have all the talent in the world, but if you don't execute the basics, it doesn't matter. And that's what Ben Johnson is trying to drive home. He doesn't need a miracle turnaround or a superstar trade. He just needs this team to play smart, clean football. Because once they do, once they finally start cutting out those little mistakes, everything else will fall into place. The drives will sustain. The red zone trips will finish. The defense will stay fresh. And the wins will start stacking up. But until that happens, they'll keep tripping over their own feet, and all that potential will keep slipping away. Now let's talk about the third area that's been quietly hurting the Bears all season long: special teams. And I know, it's not the flashiest part of football. Most people don't tune in and watch kickoffs or punts. But when you really think about it, special teams can be the difference between a win and a loss, especially in close games. And for Chicago, this phase of the game has been far too inconsistent. It's one of those parts of football that only gets attention when something goes wrong. And unfortunately for the Bears, it's been going wrong a lot lately. Let's start with the return game. Remember when Bears fans used to expect fireworks every time someone lined up to return a kick? Those days feel long gone. The current unit just doesn't bring that same spark. Devin DuVernay has had a few decent returns, including that one big 48-yard burst against the Saints. But outside of that, there hasn't been much to celebrate. Most returns are dying short of the 30-yard line. And when you add in the penalties, blocks in the back, illegal formations, holds, you're suddenly starting drives inside your own 20. In today's NFL, that's a nightmare. Field position matters. You give up 5, 10 yards per drive over and over again. And by the end of the game, That adds up to a full touchdown's worth of disadvantage. It's not just the returns, though. The coverage unit has been equally shaky. Time after time, opposing teams are getting kickoff returns that cross the 35 or even the 40-yard line. That puts the defense in a terrible position before they've even taken a snap. Missed tackles, poor lane discipline, bad angles. It's been the same problems popping up week after week. And that's what's so frustrating. These aren't issues of talent. They're issues of execution and attention to detail. A disciplined special teams unit doesn't give up 40-yard returns on routine kickoffs. And the thing is, we've seen flashes of what this group could be. Against the Saints, they actually played one of their cleanest special teams games of the season. Coverage was tighter, returns were smarter, and the tackling was much more disciplined. So we know they can do it. The question is, why can't they sustain it? What does it take getting embarrassed one week for them to lock in the next, only to fall back into bad habits again a week later? That inconsistency is what separates a playoff-caliber team from a middle-of-the-pack one. Field position is one of the most underrated stats in football. The league literally changed the touchback rule to encourage better positioning because the data shows how valuable even a few extra yards can be. The difference between starting at your own 30 versus your own 25 doesn't sound huge, but over the course of a game, that's a major advantage. Yet the Bears keep giving those yards away for free. And when you've got an offense that's already struggling to finish drives, starting deep in your own territory just makes it harder. Now let's talk about the kicking situation, because that's starting to raise some eyebrows too. Cairo Santos has been one of the most accurate kickers in the league inside of 50 yards, but once you start pushing his range, things get shaky. 2 of his misses this year have come from 50 yards or longer, and one of them came up short, on a 58-yard attempt. That's not something you see from the elite legs in this league. When you watch guys like Chris Boswell or Justin Tucker, those kicks look automatic from 55, 56 yards out. With Santos, you start holding your breath once you hit that distance. Now look, he's 33 years old. He's a reliable veteran, no doubt about it, but his leg isn't getting any stronger. That's just reality. And as the Bears think about the future, it's fair to wonder if they should start grooming someone younger with a bigger leg, someone like Jake Moody. Moody's not perfect either. He had some struggles early on, but he's got that booming range you can build around. The question is, do you make that move now or wait until you absolutely have to? Because the last thing you want is to lose a young kicker who blossoms elsewhere while you're stuck with an aging veteran who can't hit from long range anymore. Before we continue, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and give this video a like. Your support helps us keep bringing you the latest updates on our Chicago Bears. And don't be shy. Drop your thoughts on the news in the comments below. Chicago is buzzing with speculation this week, as whispers around Hallis Hall suggest that Bears quarterback Caleb Williams might be itching to take the field on Wednesday. According to sources close to the team, Williams is very eager to get some reps, but not everyone is on board with the idea. Rookie quarterback Ben Johnson, it seems, is holding firm in the pocket, unwilling to cede control so easily. The tension has reportedly been mounting during practice sessions, with coaches struggling to keep a lid on what insiders are calling headset drama. Teammates have been discreetly exchanging glances, and some say the energy on the field has been electric, but tinged with an edge of uncertainty. While the Bears coaching staff remains tight-lipped publicly, a few leaks suggest that Williams is pushing to make a statement, possibly aiming to steal some thunder from Johnson before the season officially ramps up. Fans are, of course, loving every second of the speculation. Social media feeds are lighting up with debates about who should get the nod, with some clamoring for Williams' fiery talent and others insisting that Johnson's calm, steady approach is what the team needs. The rumor mill hasn't confirmed any official decision, but sources hint that the coaching staff is carefully weighing the risks of letting Williams play too soon against the potential reward of letting him shine under the spotlight. Meanwhile, Chicago Sports Radio is having a field day dissecting every subtle gesture on the practice field. Observers note the brief, intense headset conversations between coaches and quarterbacks, the quick substitutions during drills, and the unusually sharp looks exchanged between Williams and Johnson. While it's impossible to know whether this will result in any actual roster shakeups, one thing is clear. The Bears quarterback room is now one of the hottest stories in the NFL. For now, fans are left to speculate. Analysts are scribbling notes, and Caleb Williams is apparently chomping at the bit. Whether Ben Johnson will hold his ground or yield to the rising star remains to be seen, but one thing is certain. The buzz around Chicago is only getting louder. That's it for this update. If you enjoyed the video and want to stay updated with exclusive news about our Chicago Bears, be sure to subscribe to our channel and hit that like button. We can't wait to hear your thoughts in the comments. See you in the next video.